Hi guys, I'm Carmen.
And I'm Jennifer.
And together we are the Vagina Blueprint.
We are changing the way we talk about women's health, so make sure you're subscribed on your favorite streaming platform.
The information in this podcast is intended as general education only and should not be used as medical advice, treatment, or assessment.
We can't wait to share our passion with you and bring you in on this conversation. Better for the pelvic floor.
Like men.
You know?
That's another thing. Why? Okay. Why? Why do women have to sit like this?
Shame. Don't you think?
Which is not healthy for our backs, hips, pelvic floor, all of the above. But men are allowed to sit like this. Or like this. Like, riddle me that.
I don't know.
It's bullshit.
It's about them Kegels.
All right. So today we are talking about what the F is a Kegel. Because let's face it, most of us have heard of a Kegel, and most of us may even think that we know what a Kegel is. But most people do not know, and I would say more, like much more people don't know what a proper Kegel is.
Absolutely.
I would say maybe like in all the patients I've seen, 3, maybe 4 people have described a Kegel properly. And even then, like, they only know it because someone said, like, pick up the blueberry. Not because they actually understand what it is, which is totally fine because that's better than not. But
yeah. Some is better
so
than
many
none.
people say, when I ask them what a Kegel is, they go, you squeeze your parts down there.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
And it's... No, that I try to be nice about it, but that's not what a Kegel is.
Right? Rip the Band-Aid off. It's not what it is.
So you want to tackle this one?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So, Jen, what is a Kegel?
A Kegel, in like really simple terms, is actually like a scoop, a lift, and a pull. So that's how I would explain it to a client. We're scooping from the back pelvic floor. We're lifting the pelvic floor muscles up, and then we're pulling in. I say like from the hip bones, you think about that being pulled in together. And that's that whole lifting up process. And then it's also the putting down. So we have to let everything back down, relax in reverse order. And I think that's the part that so many people miss is that, yes, we're talking about picking up the blueberry, but you're not keeping the blueberry in there forever. Put it down. Put it down.
Put the blueberry
Just
down.
Set her down. Relax. Let that baby chill.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much how I explain it. The only thing I add in there is I say, if we take a look at the bicep muscle and we watch the way the bicep works, because most people know how your bicep works, right? We can see it. We use it every day. The bicep muscle has to contract in order to function, in order to pick up this cup. My bicep muscle has to contract or squeeze. It has to shorten or lift. And then it has to lengthen to put the cup back down to be fully functional. Every muscle in the entire body functions like that. Every muscle has to contract, shorten, and then lengthen to be fully functional. And the pelvic floor muscles are no different.
Yes.
Right? So there has to be that contract, shortening, followed by that lengthening. Right? And that's why we use analogies or visualizations because sure, we can see the bicep muscle contract. So we know if we're doing that correctly. But when it comes to the pelvic floor, we can't see it. So often patients will say, okay, that's great, but like, how do I know if I'm doing it right? And that's tough. That's a tricky question,
really hard.
Right? And this is where knowledge is power, but awareness is key. You have to be aware of what you're feeling and sensing. And the only way to do that is to practice.
Yeah.
So we often use visualizations in order to do that. And one of them is the infamous blueberry or marble visualization, right? So imagining that you're picking up a blueberry or squeezing the blueberry, you're lifting it up inside, and then you're placing it back out again and letting it outside of your vagina.
Yes. And with control too. I just need to add that in there because I feel like there's like like a rhythm almost that you want to have, because you don't want to like contract and then just be like, boop.
Yeah. Yeah.
It needs to like control.
Yes.
And sometimes that's really hard. I find like some people, it's like harder to say, okay, let go now.
Right. Right. Oh, yeah. And I see that all the time. Like letting go is actually one of the hardest things for a lot of people. Like I would say I see more tension related weakness than I do just generalized weakness.
Yeah, which makes sense in our society and just,
yeah,
we're so like,
yeah, and that's a whole other topic for another day. But yeah, letting go or putting the blueberry down, placing it down is so important.
Whipping it out of there.
Yeah. And there's so many analogies. It's not just the blueberry analogy, because that doesn't work for everybody, right? Another analogy is the straw analogy. So imagining there's a straw at the vaginal opening and you're picking something up through the straw. I used to say sucking something up, and everyone thinks that's so funny.
It is funny. I always say like you're sucking up a milkshake through a paper straw.
Yeah. Like slurp up that milkshake and then let it go back. And this is the key. You're not pushing it back through the straw. You're letting go of it through the straw.
Letting it come back out.
Just let it come out.
Just so gently.
So
lovely.
The slurping is another analogy. But another one I like to use is the elevator.
Yeah.
So imagining that your pelvic floor is like an elevator and you're closing the doors of the elevator, you're bringing it up a couple levels, and then you're coming back down and opening up the doors again.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's an elevator that only has one exit. Don't open it on the second floor.
Not good.
Well, yeah, no, it wouldn't.
I don't know how that would go.
Oh, yeah. No, and there's so many, like the flower analogy is another good one. The closing of flower petals and then the blooming. Yes. That's one that I use if I have women or men who are really struggling to relax the pelvic floor. Yeah. I like them to think of that blooming flower, because when each of those petals are kind of peeling open, the sun's coming out and they're just peeling open, it really kind of gives you that feeling, that idea of gently opening and guiding the pelvic floor to relax.
Yeah, definitely the relaxing is relaxation. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
For most people.
The relaxing is hard because there's a lot of factors that play into that, right? It's not just muscle, because we hold stress and tension in our pelvic floor, whereas research shows we don't hold that in our bicep. So relaxing the bicep is easy, right? Yeah. But the pelvic floor, because we hold tension there, hold stress there, then there's other factors that come into play.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And that's where we often will talk about the diaphragm and the function of the diaphragm with the pelvic floor. And we'll kind of leave the details of that for another episode.
Yeah, because that's like a 3-part series right there.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But like if the diaphragm isn't functioning properly and it can't expand and contract, relax and contract properly, then we struggle to relax our pelvic floor properly. So being able to control and relax those muscles is so important for the Kegel. There's a lot of things that come into that. So
absolutely. Now, I always hear people say, like, I do them at red lights. Is that something that you recommend?
Usually not in the beginning. Like later on, yes, once they've kind of mastered it, but you have to be very aware and in tune with your Kegels at that point, because you basically at that point you have to multitask. So it would be like saying like, okay, do your bicep curls at a red light
while you're holding the wheel. Like think about it. Your foot's on the brake. You're hopefully on the brake at the red light. So you're already like using some of these muscles. So like, how does that even?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not that it's hard, and it's definitely doable. But the problem is if you're doing things like that too soon, then you end up recruiting other muscles. And this is a big problem that I see with the pelvic floor when I'm doing my assessments. A lot of patients will do a Kegel and they think they're doing it correctly, but they're often recruiting other muscles to help because the pelvic floor is not doing its best job.
Right.
Right. So when we try to do things like that too soon, we tend to recruit other muscles and not let the pelvic floor shine. And this is where I always say to patients, like, you really have to tune into the pelvic floor. You got to do it in an anti-gravity laying down position so that you can really feel and tune into the pelvic floor and give it its moment to shine. Because for too long, all the other muscles, all the other group members of the project have been taking over, and the pelvic floor is over here sitting in the corner saying, well, I don't have to do anything because you guys got it. When in reality, they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
They
So
can't.
it's so important to let your pelvic floor have its moment and shine. And then when it's ready, when you're ready, when you feel confident in that Kegel, then yeah, we can incorporate it to all sorts of different activities that we do throughout the day, like standing, brushing your teeth, folding laundry, rinsing dishes, sitting at a red light. Those are great opportunities to practice Kegels.
Yes, I agree.
But you first have to tune into them and kind of master that before you want to start implementing that.
So when you say too soon, what do you mean? Is that like after birth, or is there like...
No, I mean like before you've tuned into your pelvic floor and become aware of that. Right. So it's important that you have that one-on-one time with your pelvic floor and really tune into it and feel it and become aware of it. Once you have that and, you feel confident in that, you've been assessed, whether that's by exercise specialist or by a pelvic floor physio or even a midwife, if you're postpartum, having that assessment to be sure that you're actually doing it correctly can be really helpful to know that you're doing it correctly and feel confident in doing it.
Right.
So too soon, like that's variable. It depends on the person, right? Some people pick it up really quick.
I think that's a great point.
They're ready for that. But some people it takes a little bit longer, and that's okay. But that's where getting the right help, getting the right instruction and the right guidance is so important.
Yes.
Not this, well, I read on Google that it said I should hold them for 10 seconds.
Oh my God.
And they've been doing it completely wrong this whole time.
I hear people and they're like, oh, I do them while I'm running. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like the whole time? And they're like, yeah, as long as I can. And I'm like, and
how?
Are you peeing yourself the whole time?
Yeah, right.
Like I have a lot of questions here. And I'm like, if I did that, I would for sure be like a wreck by the end of it.
It would be like carrying a 100-pound suitcase home for half an hour and not changing arms. Like your bicep muscle would seize and cramp up. You wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh my gosh.
So how do we do that with the pelvic floor? The reality of it is we don't. We don't do it. We think we're doing it, but we're not. And this is where understanding, knowing what you're doing, being aware of what you're doing, and having the right guidance is so important.
Yeah. Huge, huge benefits.
Yeah. And that's the damn Kegel. That's it, folks.
Love it.
I felt good. That's a wrap.